But unfortunately, instead, Parliament is paralyzed due to this Prime Minister. He paralyzed this House by blocking the documents that we ordered to be sent to the RCMP about a $400 million scandal. What exactly is this Prime Minister hiding? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What the Leader of the Opposition said is completely false. Let me read what the RCMP said about this motion. They said there is a significant risk that this motion may be seen as a way of sidestepping normal inquiry processes and protecting the Charter. We are ready to send this to committee and return to the important business of this House. Thank you. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. Mr. Speaker, this is a $400 million scandal, 8 times more than the sponsorship scandal in financial terms. The AG has found that there were 186 conflicts of interest. The leader of the Green Slush Fund has already been found guilty of violating the law. When someone steals from you, do you call the cops or do you simply send the matter to a committee? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, it's very clear that Canadians have had enough of the little games played by the Conservative Party, and they're tired of these conservative slogans. They've also had enough of the Conservative filibustering. On this side of the House, as we've said several times, we will always be here to protect people's rights and freedoms in Canada. We will always stand up for democracy, and we will fight for Canada. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Conservatives would have liked to be working today to counter the doubling of housing costs this Prime Minister has caused, or the record food price inflation, which has been 36% higher in Canada than in the US. But unfortunately, the Prime Minister has paralyzed Parliament by refusing your ruling directing his government to turn over evidence in the $400 million Green Slush Fund scandal that the Auditor General says involves 186 conflicts of interest. Wow. With the chair of the fund found guilty, what has he got to hide?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is not being truthful with Canadians. It is the RCMP Commissioner himself who said the RCMP's ability to receive and use information obtained through this production order and under the compulsory powers afforded by the Auditor General Act in the course of a criminal investigation could give rise to concerns under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. It is therefore highly unlikely that any information obtained by the RCMP under the motion where privacy interests exist could be used to support a criminal prosecution or further a criminal investigation. Mr. Speaker, let's get this.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This is a $400 million scandal involving Liberal appointees giving millions of dollars to their own companies, and the minister's story is now changing. Yep. Last week, she claimed that the government had given documents to the RCMP. This week, they claim that if they gave documents to the RCMP, it would cause the Charter of Rights to come crashing down. It sounds like there's a new story every week to justify paralyzing Parliament to cover up the truth. What is in these documents about this $400 million scandal that the Prime Minister is so afraid of?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Speaker, this is a typical witch hunt from the Leader of the Opposition to go after people who have nothing to do with this. These are files such as personnel files that contain private information of individuals who have nothing to do with what is going on. Mr. Speaker, it is the RCMP and the Auditor General themselves who raised concerns with this motion, and it is the government's view that we should send this to committee so that we can get on with the important work of this House and protect the rights of Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
A witch hunt? The ethics commissioner appointed by this government has found the chair of the fund in violation of the law. The Auditor General, also appointed by this government, says there were 186 conflicts of interest involving Liberal appointees giving millions of dollars to their own companies. $400 million. Potential criminality, according to the main whistleblower in the scandal. Any other employer would voluntarily turn over all the evidence to the police if it had been ripped off by its own staff. What is the Prime Minister hiding?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Mr. Speaker, if and when the police request that information, it will obviously be handed over because that is proper judicial process. But when it is Parliament that is doing it, this is where Canadians should be concerned, Mr. Speaker, because when he is going after the rights of other Canadians, it's only a matter of time before his political vendettas come after the rights of all Canadians. Mr. Speaker.
Ever get the feeling that no matter how much technology changes, some things just stay the same?
Like what?
Political drama.
Right. I see what you mean.
It's like the stuff of Shakespeare, but playing out in real time on our news feeds.
And today's deep dive is a perfect example of that.
We're heading straight into the whirlwind of the Canadian Parliament.
And let me tell you, things are tense up there.
Because we're not just talking about the usual political back and forth.
This is next level stuff.
We're talking accusations of cover-ups, whispers of potential criminal
You
activity.
have to make anyone's head spin.
And get this.
What?
Our source material isn't some pundit's opinion piece.
Oh, you're kidding.
We're going straight to the source.
The horse's mouth.
The actual dialogue, word for word, from the Canadian Parliament floor.
Wow. Okay, so we're getting our hands dirty this time.
You could say that. So buckle up, because this deep dive is about to get very interesting.
What's really fascinating about this whole situation is how unusual it is for Canadian politics.
Right. They're usually known for being so, I don't know, polite.
Exactly. But this level of gridlock, it's practically unheard of.
So what happens if this drags on?
Well, for starters, it means crucial legislation could get stalled.
Which impacts everyone, right?
Absolutely. We're talking about everything from social programs to economic policy.
And let's be real, nobody wants to see their government grind to a halt.
No, and there's another layer to this.
What's that?
The erosion of public trust. That's a real concern here.
And that's not something any government wants on their hands.
Not if they want to stay in power.
Okay, so let's get down to brass tacks.
Let's do it.
Before we get into the political equivalent of a hockey brawl,
I can't wait.
we need to address the elephant in the room, or should we say, the moose on Parliament Hill.
Lay it on me.
We're talking about a whopping $400 million.
Ah, yes. The magic number that everyone's buzzing about. And it's a big one, even by Canadian standards.
To put it in perspective, this alleged scandal dwarfs even the infamous Canadian sponsorship scandal in terms of money involved.
And that's saying
It
something.
was a political earthquake, public inquiries, lasting impact on how Canadians view their government.
Yeah, people are definitely paying attention to this one.
And this hefty sum, this bundle of cash, has a name.
Oh, do tell.
It's been dubbed the Green Slush Fund scandal.
The Green Slush Fund, huh? Sounds intriguing, but I have a feeling it's not as environmentally friendly as the name might suggest.
You're right about that. If you're not familiar with the term slush fund,
Please enlighten me.
it basically implies that someone's been dipping into the cookie jar without asking.
And maybe spending the cash on things cookies weren't meant for.
Exactly.
It suggests a lack of transparency, a disregard for the rules, and that always uncomfortable possibility of corruption.
And just to really hammer home how big this is,
Walk on.
the Conservatives haven't been shy about reminding everyone that this scandal is 8 times 8 larger financially than the sponsorship scandal.
Talk about invoking a political Voldemort. Everyone in Parliament must be on edge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To understand the strategies at play here,
Please do tell.
we need to know who's on each side of this political boxing ring.
All right, let's break it down.
In one corner, we've got the Conservatives, and they are coming out swinging.
They're not holding back.
Not even a little. They're peppering every speech with that $400 million figure like it's going out of style.
Trying to make it stick in everyone's minds, huh?
Exactly.
Classic political strategy. If you repeat something often enough, people will start to believe it, whether it's true or not.
And they're pointing the finger directly at the Prime Minister.
Old move.
And in the other corner, we have the liberals,
Trying to defend their turf.
trying to navigate this political minefield without setting off any more explosions.
It's a tough position to be in.
It really is. And then there's the RCMP.
Canada's version of the FBI. Don't leave us hanging. What about them?
They're mentioned a lot in these debates, which just adds another layer of intrigue to the whole thing.
So they're kind of lurking in the background.
Like a watchful moose.
Adding to the drama. I like it.
Okay, so we're back, and we're still knee-deep in Canadian political drama.
It's like we're watching House of Cards, but with better accents and poutine.
Definitely better snacks. But seriously, this whole green slush fund thing, it's got more twists and turns than a game of political twister.
And just like Twister, someone's bound to get tangled up in the end.
Before the break, we were talking about the accusations flying back and forth between the Conservatives and the Liberals.
Those two are like a political version of those bickering squirrels in your backyard.
Except they're fighting over $400 million.
And potentially the future of Canadian politics.
Huh.
But there's one thing that's been bugging me.
What's that?
We've been talking about this green slush fund for a while now, but do we even know what it was for?
That's a good point. Like, everyone's so caught up in the who stole the cookies part of the story that they forgot to mention what kind of cookies they were.
Exactly. Were they chocolate chip cookies, oatmeal raisin cookies, those weird gingerbread men that nobody really likes but everyone pretends to enjoy during the holidays?
You really like your cookie analogies, don't you?
Hey, they help explain complex political scandals in a way that everyone can understand. But seriously, without knowing the fund's purpose, it's hard to assess the potential damage.
Okay, so let's try to figure this out. What was this green slush fund supposed to fund? Was it for environmental initiatives? Green technology? Renewable energy projects?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And unfortunately, the parliamentary transcripts we analyzed didn't provide much clarity.
So we're still in the dark about the specifics. But one thing's for sure, the RCMP's involvement adds another layer of intrigue to this whole thing.
They're like the Sphinx, watching silently from the sidelines, waiting for the right moment to pounce.
Okay, maybe not pounce, but we do need to talk about them.
Absolutely. They're a crucial part of this story.
What have they actually said about the case? Are they about to swoop in and make some arrests?
Well, from the transcripts we analyzed, it seems like they're still in the information gathering stage. They've confirmed they're reviewing the case, but haven't launched a formal investigation.
So it's a waiting game then?
Pretty much. And in the meantime, both the Conservatives and the Liberals are using the RCMP's involvement to their advantage.
How so?
Well, the Conservatives are pointing to it as proof that something shady is going on, while the Liberals are arguing that no conclusions should be drawn until the RCMP completes its review.
Classic political maneuvering.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears for a second and talk about the potential fallout. What are the stakes here? What happens if either side's accusations are proven true?
Oh, this is where things get really interesting. For the Liberals, if these accusations of a cover-up, obstruction of justice, or widespread conflicts of interest are proven true,
It wouldn't be pretty.
let's just say it could lead to some serious consequences.
Like what?
We're talking calls for resignations, a massive loss of public trust.
And potentially even criminal charges.
It's not outside the realm of possibility. We're even talking about a potential constitutional crisis, depending on how this unfolds.
Wow, constitutional crisis in Canada.
It's rare, but it's happened before, and this whole situation has the potential to shake things up in a big way.
Okay, so that's the worst case scenario for the Liberals. But what about the Conservatives? What happens if their accusations turn out to be baseless?
Well, it's not a good look for them either. It could seriously damage their credibility and make it harder for them to hold the government accountable in the future.
So it's a high-stakes game for everyone involved. Okay, let's circle back to those 186 alleged conflicts of interest. The Conservatives made a big deal about it, but they were pretty vague on the details.
And that's the problem, isn't it? Without concrete examples, it's hard to know what to make of it.
So it could be a legitimate concern, or it could be a whole lot of nothing.
Exactly. It's possible that some of these alleged conflicts of interest are minor oversights. Maybe a government official didn't realize that their cousin's best friend's dog walker was employed by a company that received funding through the Green Slush Fund. Things like that happen.
Okay, that's a pretty far-fetched example. But you see what you mean about needing more details.
Exactly. Without knowing who these 186 individuals are, what their alleged conflicts entail, and how those conflicts might have influenced the management of the fund, it's impossible to say for sure whether this is a serious issue or just political posturing.
It's like they're giving us a puzzle with half the pieces missing.
And then expecting us to solve it.
Speaking of missing pieces, We still don't have a clear picture of what this all means for everyday Canadians.
And that's what we really need to be talking about.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're a liberal or a conservative.
This scandal has the potential to impact everyone.
And we're back, ready to dive into the final act of this Canadian political drama.
I'm ready for the grand finale.
We've heard the accusations, analyzed the strategies, and explored the potential consequences of this green slush fund saga. But what does it all mean?
The million-dollar question. Well, this whole thing, with its cover-ups and conflicts of interest, it really makes you wonder about Canadian politics, doesn't it?
It's like finding out your favorite hockey team might have cheated their way to the Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah, it makes you question everything. And this erosion of trust, it's not just a Canadian thing.
You see it everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. It's a global phenomenon. People are just fed up with the political games. They want transparency. Accountability.
They want to know their leaders are working for them, not lining their own pockets.
Exactly. And once that trust is gone, it's tough to earn back. Really tough.
So what happens now? How does this Canadian political thriller end?
Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? It's like one of those choose-your-own-adventure books. There are a few ways this could go.
Okay, so walk us through the possible endings. Hit us with those cliffhanger possibilities.
All right, so one possibility is the RCMP wraps up its review and says, yep, we've seen enough. Time for a full-blown investigation.
That'd be a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. Talk about turning up the heat, especially with an election looming on the horizon.
That would definitely spice things up. What else? Any other possible endings we should prepare for?
On the flip side, the RCMP could finish their review and say, you know what? We didn't find enough to warrant a formal investigation.
Case closed.
Not so fast. That might take the pressure off the Liberals for now, but the Conservatives, they'd likely keep pushing, demanding more transparency.
They'd be like a dog with a bone.
Exactly. They'd accuse the Liberals of sweeping it all under the rug. It'd be messy.
So even a win for the Liberals wouldn't really be a win.
Pretty much. And then there's the wild card.
Don't tell me there's more.
Always. The court of public opinion.
Ah, yes, the People's Court. That's a tough one to predict.
Tell me about it. Public opinion can make or break a government, regardless of what goes down in the legal system.
Especially these days, with social media and everything.
Right. Information or misinformation spreads like wildfire online. It's more important than ever to be careful about what you believe. Question your sources.
And don't just blindly trust whatever your favorite political party is peddling.
Exactly. There's always more to the story than meets the eye.
And that's what we've tried to do today on The Deep Dive.
We've dug deep, examined the evidence, and considered all sides of this story.
Hopefully, we've given you the information you need to draw your own conclusions.
Because at the end of the day, you get to decide what you believe.
So as this Canadian political drama unfolds, remember to stay curious, stay informed.
And most importantly, stay engaged.
This is a story that affects us all. Until next time, happy deep diving.